Hello, everyone, and welcome back to You Are Your Business podcast. I'm excited today to be chatting with Joline, who is a mortgage broker, and we actually have met through Work Wives, and we were kind of discussing there. She has a podcast, I have a podcast, and we're like, hey, let's connect and learn more about each other and share that with our listeners. So I'm so excited for you to be here today.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited. It's different not being the host, so I
Yes.
love it.
I've done it before where I've been a guest and then I've thanked them for being on the show and I'm like, "Oh, wait a minute. No, it's supposed to be the other way around, but you're just so used to doing it yourself, right?"
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can see
Yes.
that.
So, for our listeners, why don't you share a little bit about how you kind of got started into becoming a mortgage broker?
Yeah, for sure. So, I guess I'll start when okay, so when I was in high school, I'll start right there. So,
Yeah.
I didn't know what I wanted to do, and everyone seemed to know what they wanted to do. Everyone around me, like what they wanted to do next, go to like university or become a whatever. They all seemed to know what they wanted to do. I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I kind of felt the pressure of like deciding or like finding out, figuring out what I wanted to
Yep.
do. And so I eventually someone that I knew that I grew up with was like, "Oh, well, I'm going to like community college for whatever." And I was like, "That's so like good for you." Like cuz I felt like I had to go to university and stuff.
Yep.
So then I decided to go, then I started looking into it. I was like, that looks like a fun course, like marketing and stuff like that. It was like you could either do finance or marketing. Like it was kind of the first year was the same. So I was like, well, I'll see, but that looks interesting. So I actually, instead of doing finances, I went into marketing because I like the fun stuff. That's what I like really. Um,
Yes.
so once I graduated, I was working for a non-for-profit in marketing, and then my husband, at the time, I mean, we met in college, but
Right.
um, at the time, so he had graduated the year before and had become a mortgage broker because he was in finances. So I was kind of watching from afar, like seeing him doing his thing and talking to clients, and I'm like, I could do that, like for sure, I could do that. And I like people, like I like connecting with them and
Yes.
hearing their stories and just talking to them. And so eventually he's like, I'm so busy because it was 2007, 2008, maybe by then. And so that's when like the rates all started going down. So
Yes, there was like the
yeah,
market.
yeah, like
Yeah.
crashed and
Yes.
whatever. So it was good for mortgages.
Yeah.
But he was so busy. And then he's from northern New Brunswick, so very, very French. And he's like, there's all these like English clients that I don't feel comfortable talking to yet, and like all of that. So I was like, I can like help you out for sure. So he's like, okay,
Yeah.
like, can you call them? I'll do the back end stuff with the bank. So I started doing that because at the time you didn't need like a license or anything to do mortgages, I guess. So it was kind
Yeah.
of, we do have one now, but at the time,
Yeah.
like people trusted us, which is good because we were trustworthy. But
Yes.
thinking back now, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I was like 20 years old, like, hey, what's like, here's your mortgage and like
Yeah.
we're gonna do like financing, whatever. So it was kind of funny, but yeah, that's kind of how it started. So I just started doing them and then eventually I'm like, okay, well, I have to decide like, do I want to keep doing it and go full time? Because I was just doing it like on the side, right? I had my
Yeah.
other like first job. So that's how it started for me. And so I've always like worked with my husband. We've like been
Yeah.
alongside each other as mortgage brokers. We did for 15 years. And then a few years ago, he has apartment buildings, so he started being really busy because he bought like a bunch more and then was kind of too busy to like keep up with the mortgages. So
Yeah.
I kind of took over like his client database and like
Yep.
the whole kind of business that that
But
we
it
were
would have been such
running.
like a seamless transition though, because obviously being partners and then understanding like his client base and knowing how he operates to make sure that you have like a good client experience because you understand
Right.
everything, right? So,
Yeah. So I
yeah.
mean, it was kind of like a growing we had to like grow into it because he wasn't sure if he was going to come back or not, and then it was kind of like it was a lot of we had just hired our assistant, so like she came in and like he basically like went out at the same time, kind of
Yeah.
we're like, okay, we got this, and we'll just take care of your clients, kind of thing, and finish off the everything that was open and going on, and keep up with everything. So it's kind of like a weird like also again it just happened and not it wasn't planned, so we were kind of
Yeah.
trying to survive, and like that was in 2021, which was a crazy mortgage time as well. So
Yes.
there was some growing pains, but also just figuring everyone out, like whose lane we're like what we're what are we doing and who does what.
Right, and who's helping and doing like having more like designated roles, I guess, for like what can
Right.
you pass off, what can you like keep, what
Yeah.
maybe like eliminate kind of thing, right, too?
And also like my husband's really um his standards are really high, so he was very like wanted to kind of be in the background and like, oh, did you do this and did you talk to them yet and stuff. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like, okay, it's fine, like leave it with
I've
me.
got it.
Got it. Sometimes maybe we didn't, but we were trying. But anyways, so that's kind of how I guess from then until now. So that's a little bit of my story, but yeah.
Yeah. So how do you find it navigating, working with a spouse? Because I know there's a couple listeners that have like they work with their spouse. So how do you have
Mm.
like blocked off like, okay, after a certain time we don't talk about business? Like how does that all kind of work?
Yeah, so we don't really have set rules. Maybe we should have them, but I feel like it can be a challenge, especially at home, because it we have so many things because now we don't see each other during the day because he's out doing his stuff,
Yeah.
doing renovations, all of that. And then I'm I mean, mortgages. And then sometimes it kind of like I want to help him because he's so busy on his end, and I see that like he needs the help.
Yep.
And he works with his dad. They're partners in that business, so it's very much family, like mixed
Oriented. Yes.
everywhere. So I find it hard because it's like his dad will come to like a hockey game, watch our son play, and then he'll like, oh, like this tenant did that or what. So it's like it's really hard to put the boundaries, I find,
Yes.
especially
There's
with
almost no escape with family kind of thing, right? Yeah.
so it can feel like that. Sometimes we'll voice it like, okay, like we don't want to talk about it right now, like
Yeah.
later or tomorrow or Monday, right? Like whatever.
Yeah.
So we kind of have to like try to keep those boundaries sometimes, especially when we're like just trying to relax and not wanting to talk about it. But
Yes.
I find we definitely can we can get better at like prioritizing like our time as a couple because
Yeah.
we've been like very much in the businesses like the last few years. So I feel like this season has been more challenging for sure. So we're not like the ideal couple to look up to yet
You know
for
what? I don't think
managing.
there is, and I think that's such an honest and like, so thank you for sharing that too, because I think a lot of times people think like it's all perfect and sunny and roses and it's great because I work with my
Yeah.
spouse, but you're so authentic and being like, we're actually figuring it out and we're in a season right now of like, maybe this isn't working the way we're wanting it to work and we're figuring it out as we go, right? So
Yeah,
thank you for being open about that because I'm
for
sure that's so
sure.
relatable for
Mm.
listeners that do work with their spouses, right? Because I'm sure there's periods of time where you're like, oh my God, things are flowing, things are great. And then now there's other
Sometimes
times where
it's,
you're like, I'm going to
yeah,
rip your hair out. Like you're driving me
right.
nuts right now.
Sometimes it goes so well, and then eventually, sometimes you go back to like your old habits too. So I find
Yes.
like a moving target, trying to figure out what the best way, and also having kids, like younger kids,
Yes.
all of that just kind of, it's like a mix of just
Adding to it
exciting.
as well too.
Yeah,
Definitely,
yeah.
it's making me think, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Kim Hebert, who is owns Door Gurus with her husband, but she wrote a book called Awkward Family Dinners because
Okay.
they've ran some like a couple family run businesses. So I feel like that might be a good book and might help with like some insight
Oh,
of like because
thank
they
you.
had their own little like navigating circumstances they had to go through. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, shout out to Kim for sharing that and writing that too. But so
Oh,
you're not
yeah.
alone. You're in good company because it sounds like it happens often with people that work with their spouses too.
Yeah.
Yes. So one of the things you kind of have, mentioned about is how higher income equals more payments, and that's always not the smartest path. So can you maybe kind of share a little bit more about that? Because I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm making more. Let's just go dive
Right,
into my dream house, and So can you share a
right.
bit more about that?
Yes, absolutely. So I love talking about that. So when I started doing mortgages, that's when I would like see people's credit bureaus, right? So
Yep.
I find having seen that really young at a young age, I was only like 20 when I started, I think, or 21.
Yeah.
And so seeing that income, like someone can make, I don't know, at the time was like 200, 100,000 was like a lot.
Yep.
People were making like maybe 40, 50, like just normal, I mean, jobs here and there.
Yeah.
And in New Brunswick, houses were much cheaper back then than they are now. But so what I realized is that a lot of people think when they see someone with like a brand new car or like they bought the brand new house or like a bigger house, they're like, oh wow, like they must be doing so good. And look at them. But like when they would come and see us, then we're like, oh, okay, well, you make this much, but then you have this mortgage, which is like more than the usual, or like the
Right.
normal. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And then your car payments, or they have two brand new cars. So I find from the outside it looks really good and like, wow, look at them, they're doing so well. But then when you look at actual numbers, it's like they might make more than like the average person, but they just have more payments,
Well,
which
they're spending more, it
they're
sounds
spending
like.
more. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like when we see like the ratios or the like sometimes it's like, oof, like, okay, well, they need help. Like if they're looking to refinance or stuff, like
Right.
it's just like sometimes I find when you don't know these things, you see people and like especially I find with like the new cars and stuff, it looks
Yeah.
really exciting and like, oh wow, like must be nice. But all the only difference from like you that has like an older car and not like a payment on it and them that has the exciting new
Yes.
shiny car or toy is the payment. So it's like everyone could, I mean, go get that level of things and feel good,
Yes.
but it's just more payments. So I feel like people forget that it's not always what it seems. So that's
Yes,
something
that's
that I
such a good point.
really, really like realized early on. I was like, wow, okay, like it's totally not what I thought. So people that had like older cars, like maybe, I don't know, 10 years old, and it like, they're like, oh,
Yep.
it's nothing. Like when you're asking what they own, they're like, oh, I just have an old, like whatever. And I would get excited because I'm like, good, they don't have car payments. Like, yes,
Yes.
for the application, that's good.
Yes.
And usually the ones that had like really modest like homes and cars and those things, uh,
Yeah.
their net worth was way higher than people that had all of the things and made more money. So
Right.
like it's just like when someone comes in like maybe a car dealership
Yeah.
that would sell cars, I feel like they might underestimate the ones that don't look that fancy but that probably have
Right.
a lot of money in their bank account
Right.
versus the ones that do look like they have but they just spent more, right? And
Well, and it sounds
don't
like it's
have.
people making more informed decisions around like
Mhm.
some of the payments that they're making. And, maybe
Right.
if they're looking to buy a new house or refinance, maybe stepping into like that brand new car isn't maybe the most ideal time. So,
Mhm.
you talked about like net worth. So, for our listeners, can you share a bit more about that? Because I've heard like different ways of how people figure out what net worth is. So, can you
Right.
kind of maybe break that down a little bit
For
more?
sure. Yeah. So basically, it's just if you were to sell everything you own, cash everything out, like minus your debt, pay off all of your debt that you
Yeah.
have attached to it, what's left? So like you sell your house, you get the profit is
Yeah.
basically like what would be your net worth. It's
But
like
do
your
you factor, so I've heard of people factoring in like life insurance and stuff like that into like their net
yeah.
worth and
So
stuff too.
right, so life insurance can count, but only if it's a cash value.
Got
So
it.
a lot of like some products, it's just once someone like passes away, then you get that money. So it's not actually
Right.
valuable until like if that
Someone,
happens.
right.
So, but the cash value ones, if you have a product like that, then you could. you can cash it out. So that
Okay.
cash out amount would be included in your assets. So like assets, usually it's like those type of life insurances,
Yeah.
cars, houses, like
S-
jewelry, like art, like
Stocks, those types of
stocks, yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
RSPs, like all of those things. Yeah. The invest
yeah.
I don't know if I'm probably missing some, but
Oh, I'm
in
sure there's
general that's
multiple more, but yeah, that's
yeah.
kind of the gist of. Okay, so would, you were kind of talking about how people tend to like, in a sense, kind of spend more than what they're making in that
Hmm.
sense when it comes to things. So would you find that that's kind of maybe like a mindset trap that people fall into when it comes to wanting to like grow
Yes.
their money as when it comes to like their house and stuff like that too?
I think it's more about people not really looking at the numbers and not like they just don't have a budget. Like they haven't looked at the numbers. They don't know how much is actually coming in every month versus what is coming out. And I understand why, because like we live in a world where everything goes so fast. It's like you can't even keep up. Like I feel
Yeah.
it that way as well. And one thing that I started doing, I told my husband, because also on the weekends, like I don't work nights and weekends generally, but I started feeling really behind on like my accounting and stuff, like just kind of keeping up with my own stuff or
Yep.
paying myself back on my expenses that go
Yeah.
on like yeah, I mean personally, and it's like okay,
Yep.
I have to pay myself back with the corporation, like so and that would just make me feel really shitty because I was like, oh, like feeling overwhelmed and knowing like, okay, yeah, I have to call like pay, do you know what I mean, pay myself back. Like, I don't know, I
Y-
just feel like I'm behind. And so it
Yes.
started coming like the first Sunday of every month doing all of those things, doing like the monthly accounting that I had delegated to someone else. But I realized that looking at my numbers made me feel a lot more on top of things. And it wasn't actually like a big deal like to do. It's just I was just
Yes.
thinking like, oh,
We
I'm
make
trying
it
to
that in our head,
yeah.
right? That it's
Yeah.
going to be overwhelming, but you're right. It sounds like
Once
you're
you're
now
like,
empowered yourself
yeah.
to like know the information so you can make decisions based on that information too.
Absolutely, yeah, because it's like I had no idea, like, oh, like I would see the numbers, like how much comes in kind of, but like things go so fast that I never really like put it all together. Like the last
Yep.
few years, I wasn't doing that for me, like myself doing it. So, like the accountants and stuff all had that information, but I didn't even know, like, are we doing better than last year? Like I wasn't looking
Right.
at the numbers and the data. And I feel like once I started doing it, I was like, I actually like this feeling, like seeing the
Yes.
numbers and be like, oh, okay, like we're actually doing like good or not or whatever. Like, oh, we need
Right.
to adjust this or like we probably don't need to pay for that. Like, I don't know, like just things like that you can adjust better. And I feel like if you do that for your personal finances, like printing out your last 3 months bank statements,
Yes.
looking at it and being like, where's my money going? Because most of the time you don't know where it went. It's just poof.
Well, it's true. And it's so easy just to tap, 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 tap and not be
Mhm.
paying attention
Yeah,
necessarily to like what's coming in and out for sure.
it's for sure. Yeah, it kind of gets out of out of control sometimes. It's too easy. So easy. Yeah,
Yes.
I agree.
S- So for our listeners, so they're entrepreneurs. So I've no typically it's a different route entrepreneurs have to take when it comes to like getting a mortgage. Is that kind of what you typically find, or is it
It can
uh
be for sure. So, so if someone's self-employed, like sole proprietor, so that their income taxes, that their business income is on their personal income taxes,
yep,
that's usually when it becomes, the banks will use their net income instead of the gross
right.
versus someone that's like full-time, salaried employee, they'll use their gross yearly income, which isn't
Right.
fair, I guess, but whatever, it is what it is.
That the banks do what
Um,
they want to do, right?
yeah,
So
yeah. So
yeah.
we won't change their mind anytime soon, I
Yeah.
don't think. But so that's for someone that's sole proprietor. The banks generally want someone to be like for like a the best rates and like a lending or whatever.
Yep.
They'll want 2 years history so that you've been self-employed for 2 years. So to fit in that box, that's typically what they're gonna ask for.
Right.
There are so many, there are banks that has, like, programs for self-employed, like, people, right? So,
Right.
sometimes we can make it work otherwise, where they, like, add back some expenses or, they'll gross up the income. Like, there's different things, which is where you really wanna find someone that knows, like, their stuff around that,
Right.
or like your mortgage person. So that's where I find like even like a mortgage broker, we have so many different options. So we don't only deal with one bank. So that's
Right.
one of the things I find is very helpful. We also have some banks that they can go like higher ratios as well. Like they have programs for that. So if it doesn't fit in like the typical like ratios, then we can look into like further.
Okay.
So, like, there are ways, and then if someone is incorporated, then they're either paying themselves a salary or dividends
Right. Yep.
usually. And so the banks like to see 2 years of the same type of income and they'll do the average. So if someone's paying themselves in dividends, if they have their last 2 years in dividends, like their T5s, then we'll
Yes.
average of that. So there's obviously a lot of sometimes people just switched and incorporated themselves like
Right.
half and half. So there's a lot of like exceptions to be asked for like by us, so we just kind of have to make sense of it, and I find the story also is very helpful, so if everything can like be explained properly and that you have someone that's like believes in your file, that makes all the difference too.
Right.
But yeah, it's definitely a
So do you find if an entrepreneur is incorporated, they have a better, like, less
it's
loopholes, I guess, to go through compared to someone as a solo entrepreneur?
It's more that like if they're paying themselves a salary, then it's like that gross income of the
Right.
salary account. So it depends how much they're paying themselves. So sometimes it helps because it's
Right.
more straightforward. But sometimes it's messy. It depends.
Yeah, fair enough. That's
Yeah.
a fair answer because it's kind
Yeah.
of dependent on each
Never
case and
the
each scenario,
same.
right? So
It's
yeah.
almost never the same. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're
But
looking at so many different like situations, I'm sure, right?
yeah, it feels like no application's ever the same.
Yeah.
It's the same but different. It's there's always a twist.
Or
Even
something.
people that are like employees, there's always a twist. It's seems like there's no straightforward like applications anymore. That's how I feel. That's how we've all been feeling as like mortgage brokers for
Yes,
so
that sounds well, and I'm sure have you found um like the rules have changed kind of thing
Mhm.
since like you've started too, so probably trying to stay on top of like all of that as well?
Right. Yeah. So because I've been a mortgage broker for 16 years, I think now, I think that's it.
Yep.
And so it's changed so much. It's always changing. So
Yep.
it's never stayed the same for like a long time. There's always like, oh, okay. Sometimes there are bigger changes than others, but there's always
Right.
something to change or some like guidelines also. Like so it can I feel like sometimes they did tighten up like the banks in like maybe like 2010, 12, 11. Like they started kind of tightening things up.
Yep.
Sometimes they're kind of targeting more refinances than like purchases or
Right.
whatnot. um After like during COVID and after like the pandemic, it was different too. They were asking for different things to make sure people were still working, like
Right.
um, I don't know. Yeah, there's always something new to like keep up with for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure it'll change again within the next
Oh
couple
yeah,
of years, right? Post
for
like the
sure.
pandemic and everything too. So,
Yeah.
okay, I want to share with our listeners too. So you have a podcast called the Money Buddha Podcast. So
Yeah.
I'd love to know kind of what inspired you to start that.
Oh my gosh, I love that question. Okay, so the podcast, I had thought about it for like a few years. Like, I'm sure like 4 or 5 years. I was like, oh, I'd like to have a podcast. Like, it'd be fun. I think I'd really enjoy it. And like, I could do it. Like, I knew I had it in me and like, it's
Yeah.
something I wanted to do. But then I was like, I don't know about what though. Like, and I was like, I don't really want to do it about mortgages because that's like what I talk about all day, every day. And I was like, it needs to be something else. Like, I didn't feel like it didn't light me up to
Yep. to
do
have
it
those
about,
conversations, like,
yeah,
yeah,
like more than what I was doing.
right.
So I was just thinking about it for like all those years, and then eventually I'm like, okay, like I just need to like do it and just pick something and go, and then you can adjust like after. Um,
Yes.
and it just as it goes. So what I did, I finally decided after like talking about it all this time, and I was like, I'm just gonna talk to like entrepreneurs that, or generally entrepreneurs, but people that really
Yep.
follow the things that light them up in business and in life, because that's what I like to hear about. In
Yes.
all of the podcasts I listen to, that's like the glimpse that I like to hear about, or that type of person, right? So
Yes.
I was like, that's what I wanted. Like, that's who I want to talk to. But when I was trying to decide or figure out, I was like, but do I do solo podcasts? Do I do with guests? But then guests, you have to ask people all the time.
Yeah.
You find people. So I always had all these like questions, like, oh my gosh, what's going to be the name? What is it going to be about? Like, I couldn't like go forward because my brain was too like there was,
Overwhelmed with everything, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
like
it's
what's
almost like that analysis paralysis. Like we have this idea and then we
yeah.
stop ourselves from doing the idea because it's like we're trying to figure out the how instead of just
Right.
starting, right?
Just doing the one thing. Yeah, for sure. So that's for sure what happened. And though eventually I was like, I get like annoyed with myself. I'm like, okay, just do it. Like, just do it. So what I did, I hadn't had any, I didn't even prepare anything. I didn't decide anything yet, but I was like, I decided that it would be with people that follow the things that light them up,
Yes.
or like business owners. I don't know what. Anyways, so I asked like three different people that day. I'm like, I'm just gonna ask someone and then I'll have to figure it out. So
Yes.
I asked three or four people that I knew that I was like curious about to hear more about what they were doing. Cause I know like here we're like a tight-knit community, so we know a lot about people-ish, but we
Yep.
don't like see them or talk to them that much, right? So it's like I would want to like have a coffee with them, but I don't have time to go for coffee dates. So if I book it, I have to change it. I don't know. So I was like, I'll just
Right.
do kind of that, but like Zoom it and do the podcast. So that was my first like. So yeah, I asked three or four people. They all said yes, because obviously they were the type of people that love that stuff. And
Right.
we knew each other already. They're like, for sure. So what I did, I sent voice messages. That's how I generally ask people, is usually voice messages. And
Yeah.
I was just like, hey, like I started a podcast, which wasn't true yet, but I was like, I started a podcast. It's about people that follow the things that light them up in business and in life. And I was like, I had like, that's totally you. I'd love to like have you on, and it's on Zoom, whatever. I'll send you the link. Just let me know, whatever. I'll send you the details. And they were like, yeah, awesome, for sure. So then I had three people say yes, and I'm like, damn, okay, so cool. Let me like get a few things ready and I'll send you the details. So
Yes.
I told my assistant, I was like, cancel, like, I don't know if I had anything in my agenda, but I was like,
Yes.
clear my calendar for the afternoon. I'm gonna like do the my form, which I used Dubsado. I saw that you.
Yes, I use it too. Yes, I love
So
it.
I was like, I created my form in like a few hours. I was
Yeah.
whatever, just I took like a picture, like an old picture that I had with my Buddha statue.
Yes.
And so I just like slapped that on. I was like, the money Buddha, and I didn't know what the name was gonna be. And I was like, oh, like, and I would get stuck on that. But I had started a blog like a few years back, about like money mindset and stuff.
Yeah.
And I had called it the Money Buddha blog. And I
Yes.
loved that name so much. I still loved it. So I was like, I'm just gonna put that and I can change it anytime. And so it's
Absolutely.
a great one. And I still love it, so it's fine. But yeah, so that's how I started.
I love that. And again, it's, you know, taking that messy action that you said to eventually, and just like that's the biggest thing is once we say something to somebody, we're like, okay, crap.
Yeah.
They said yes, which is amazing, but now I got to figure it out and I have to make it happen now because
Right.
they've
Like we
said
have to figure out
yes.
the things. Yeah. So I
Yes.
work better under pressure like that for
Yep.
someone else. To do it for myself and only me, it's like I'll just like I won't do it. I'm just not. I just don't know. I can't like doing solo podcast episodes, I would never do it. I
Have
wouldn't.
you done any solo
I've
podcasts?
done one because I had
One.
something on my chest and I wanted to do it. So I just decided to do it.
Yeah.
But I feel like I wouldn't keep up with doing them. I don't know why. I have a
Yes.
hard
I
time
found
following my calendar if it's not with someone else, like if it's not a meeting with someone else,
right.
if it's me putting myself like something for me in my own calendar, I I don't know why.
You cancel it. I
I
get
just
well,
don't do it. I'm like, oh, well, whatever, I'm doing something else, and then I don't like follow it. I don't know why.
well, and it's interesting because I just had a conversation earlier this week with somebody else because I've been doing like having guests on my podcast. I've been doing my podcast for over a year now, which I've been loving. And it's true. I'm like, I love speaking, I love connecting, I love like learning more and putting this out into the world. But then I was also finding I'm like, I want to do more solo episodes because I want to be considered like the go-to in my industry, like a thought leader. But it's true, as soon as it's time to do the solo, it's almost like you clamp up and you're like, oh, what am I going to say? What am I,
Right.
where when you're having these types of conversations, it just seems more natural and easier than just speaking into a mic with no one around. And
Right.
you're like, I hope you're listening. I hope you understand. Right.
I know. I know. I feel like when I try to prepare too much, I'm not the type of person that if I do all my notes and like I'm just it doesn't work for me. Like
Yeah.
even creating content because I found like eventually like mortgage broker it becomes very like the same all the time
Right.
and not very creative and like I was missing having like a creative outlet, which is why I had started the blog and stuff. So when I started doing social media, like videos or posting things, I like kind of started loving my job again a lot more
Yes.
because of that. So I feel like I forget where my what I was gonna why what were we
That's
talking
okay.
about?
I was just gonna say, I think you bring up a really good point though, of like having that creative outlet. Because I
Yeah.
think a lot of times we get so focused in the day to day and doing the things that we love our day to day, but it's right having that outlet that like brings you joy. And for you, it was like, I want to connect with people. I want to hear about the
Yeah.
creativity and I want to be creative in my own life too.
Right. Okay, I just remember why I was
Yeah.
saying things. So thank you.
Yeah.
So when I would try to plan social media, so it's like, oh,
Yes.
I'm gonna do a video about this. I cut and could talk about that, and I should talk about how to like about my job. So like, what do
Yes.
people should know? Like, what do I want to tell them? What should they know? Like all of the things about mortgages, and I would write them down and try to like plan things and plan for like social media days and like do videos that time that day
Yeah.
and like I can't follow that at all. And it doesn't feel I it doesn't feel authentic when I do that. When I did that and plan a video and like what am I gonna say? And then I get in my head about like, oh well, what if I forget about something important? Then I'll be like, oh, and then other people in my industry will see it and be like, oh, she forgot to say that. Like I don't know why.
Right.
It really like it didn't feel natural to me and it didn't feel like right to do it that way. And I would like block. I couldn't like like and then
Right.
I had to do it and it didn't feel like the best. But if I just talked to a client and I told them something, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, people like don't know this." And just pick up my phone and do it right after because I'm really feeling it. Those are the
Yes.
best ones. So I
They
realized that
are.
I can't plan things like I'm not made to plan, I think.
Well, and I think it's so important too, because like you bring up a good point about like being in the energy.
Yeah.
Because you're lit up about it, you just had a conversation about it, you have like an example to give. So you're like, you're passionate about what you're sharing because you're like, oh my gosh, this person didn't know this, and I just helped them with this. So if they don't know, I'm sure there's other people out there that don't know as well, compared to like, I think you should know one, two,
Yeah.
three, four, these three
The
steps.
four
Like it just
things.
doesn't feel like as
Yeah.
genuine, totally.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think I'm like, ugh, I'm over like those lists. It's like I don't want to
Yeah.
read a bunch of things anymore. Or like I just yeah, it just doesn't feel like my vibe anymore. I'm like, like cool, but I'd rather have the one thing that someone just but I'm excited about it because they're excited or whatever, right? It is the
Yes,
energy. It definitely is the energy.
definitely.
So yeah.
So, do you have like a favorite episode that you've done like on your podcast of like someone you've connected with and like really
Okay,
them
so
stepping
yes.
in?
I mean, maybe not like just one, but I'll say the one that popped in my head when you
Yeah.
said that. So I had put out because you have to find guests all the time, right? When you have guests.
Yes.
So I was like, oh, I'm like, as you know, I'm not a big planner. So as you know by now. So I would always be like, oh shoot, I don't have anyone for next week kind of thing. Like,
Right.
because I've been doing it since I think it was July 2023. I haven't been like every week consistently, but that was like the goal. And I took like a last summer off. Like I just said, like, hey, like see you in
Yeah,
September because I'm like, I make the rules here. It's
absolutely.
fine. Like I
Yeah.
didn't feel bad. I was like, I don't feel like having to keep up like during, you know what I mean? So
Yes.
um so I had put a Facebook post out and I was like, "Hey, who would you like to hear? Looking for more guests." So people would like tag random people. And so there was one, she's like, "Oh, it's my friend. She's a newly entrepreneur, like dog groomer. Like she used to be in the I don't know, was it like like she wanted to become a police officer, like it was just
Okay.
very like I was like, that's interesting. Okay. And then so, but like it's not a business person yet, or she had
Mm-hmm.
just started. So
Yeah.
she didn't have like a lot of social. So like I couldn't like find things about her. Do you know what I mean? Usually it's like, oh,
Right. I know. I was able to like
website
go on
and
your Instagram and your
yeah,
website and like I could
it's
find out a bit of
easy.
information,
Yeah.
right? Yes.
So I realized that for her, she was like, "Oh my gosh, I've never been on a podcast. I didn't even know what a podcast was." And so I didn't know how it was gonna go because of the messages she was sending me. She was so funny though, so I knew it was gonna be fine. And my
Yes.
friend, the one that suggested it had been on my podcast, so like I could trust her judgment
Yes.
too. She's like, you're gonna love her. She's hilarious. So, and her name was Angela Leblanc, was her name. So we did the podcast and she was so excited about it. She was like, I'm nervous, but I'm excited.
Aw.
And her family, she was so excited to share it too. And like she was like tagging her sons and like, here's the link. Like, and it's like one of the best ones that like of listeners because everyone's like, what is Angela up to now? Do you know
Yes. What is
that
she
doesn't
doing?
post ever or not very often? I find those are the guests that I get the most listeners is like the ones that aren't posted everywhere about or on podcasts or like
Right.
so it's more of a big deal for them. And so they'll share it more and like people are so excited about them being on something or like good for you and like their whole family.
Yes. And
And then
want to
I
know their journey and what they're
yeah.
doing. And yes.
And then I had another one a few weeks ago, and it was like his journey of becoming sober and then becoming an entrepreneur, and like just kind of like his story.
Yeah.
He had reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, someone talked to me about your podcast and said I should reach out to you." And I was like, "Cool." And I was like, "Yeah, for sure," because he said kind of a little bit about his story.
His story.
And I was like, yeah. And then it was the same. He's like, I've never been on a podcast. I've always wanted to. And like his like grandma was like posting on the like commenting on it.
Oh,
And she's
that's
like,
so
I'm so proud
sweet.
of you. Like you could see with
Oh.
like people from high school, like, I'm so proud of you. Good for you. Like, wow. And like
Oh,
so
wow.
inspiring. So I feel like sometimes because I realized that I was always going for like, oh, I want to go to like next level
Yeah.
get like, oh,
Yeah.
who else can I like what's the challenge? And then when I had Angela, I was like, wow, like I feel like maybe I want to change my goal of like who I want to connect with.
Yes.
Because if it's someone that's always on podcasts or like used to talking to like media or just whatever, the
Right.
story, like it's kind of like you can tell the energy is just like, okay, I know what to say. I'm gonna say those things and like
Right.
and it's fine. Like it's all fine and we learn things.
We do.
But
But
I
this
found it's different. Yeah.
you're giving them a voice and like a platform to
Yeah,
share, right? That they
yeah.
probably wouldn't have done before. And because you're so easy going and like a natural for them, they feel safe to be able to be like, have these conversations. So that's so amazing.
Yeah, so that's what I love about it. So I realized like I don't need to ask a whole bunch of people that I'm like, oh, the biggest business owners or whatever. Like, I'm asking
Yes.
more like, oh, like you wrote a book, like my friend from high school. I'm like, "Hey, you wrote a book? Like, what do you mean? Like, come on my podcast." So I've been
Yes.
doing that a lot more, just like, and I love it. Yeah. So I kind of tweaked it a little bit that way. No one maybe noticed, but like I'm happy about that change.
Yes, and it feels good. And I think again, that's what keeps us excited and wanting to like do stuff. And again, things are allowed to change, right? Like
Right,
you're
right.
allowed to change
You
your mind. You're
forget.
allowed to go a different direction. You're allowed to follow what makes you feel good. And I think we get so scared to do that because of
Mhm.
what people are going to say or think or all the stories we tell ourselves, right?
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, we have talked about so much today. It's been such a pleasure having you on the podcast. I'll make sure to include in the show notes your website, your Instagram and Facebook, or where people can find you. But is there any kind of like last parting words you want to share with our listeners?
Oh my gosh, that's a good question. Um, I guess if we keep it on the mortgage theme, we'll say, just because you can buy it doesn't mean you should.
Yes, that is such a good point.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that because I feel like it's having people think twice
Right.
about the decisions that they're making and not doing it with an intention as opposed to, now trying to fix things after they've made the decision. So,
Yeah.
yes, thank you for
Absolutely.
that reminder.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Oh, absolutely. It's been a pleasure. So, thank you.